We're going to reconvene the meeting. Mrs. Jefferson, if you'll please step forward to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir.
You will have 5 minutes to address the board. At about the 4-minute mark, I will let you know that you have about a minute remaining. And just to let you know that no one on this panel can respond to any questions or comments you have other than Dr. Kane.
That's fair enough.
You're ready we're ready when you are.
Now you didn't get none of my 5 minutes, right?
I will let you know.
And because you're speaking in the microphone, would you mind taking your mask down so you can be heard clearly? Or now, if you have a different,
Can you hear me?
David? Please, okay.
He can hear me. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Betty Square Coleman. I live at 116 Bradshaw Street. We're here in the city of Waxahachie, 75165. And I do want to thank the board and everybody present for allowing me this time to speak. Again, I apologize for not properly doing it. But I'm here to just ask, I think I submitted 3 questions asking statements. One of the first, so that I understand, we're talking about reopening school and our regular starting school session, correct? Am I understanding it correct? With these COVID guidelines that you guys posted online? Right. Okay. So, and I noticed in there that it says second grade and under would not be required. Was the second grade? They wouldn't be requiring masks, and I understand why. Third grade and under. But the question that, and I know you guys can't respond, but one of my questions I had in there was that even though they're little tykes, but wouldn't they be carrying the COVID virus as well? That was one of my statements that needed to be considered. But the second one I had was, what about the personnel that's dealing with special needs children, the children that have to have hands on and that cannot wear masks, like junior high and up, that cannot wear face masks because of their afflictions? So how is that to be dealt with, and how are we to safeguard the personnel dealing with those students? And then the third one that I have is, we're talking about going back to school. I believe parents are being given an option as to whether or not the kids can come back to school or stream online. Not only on the east side of Waxahachie, but in other parts of Waxahachie, not everybody has the hot spots. Not everybody has the capability of being able to tap into that online service. And not everybody is able to afford, and I know that's a personal problem, the kind of equipment that's needed to be able to get educated. So those are my concerns. And the biggest one I have is that, and I'm just one person, that we're moving a little too soon with the outbreak being as it is. And we're putting a lot of people in contact, personnel, children, assistive administration, everybody is being subject to getting the virus. So I'm just one person, and I just think that we're moving a little fast, but I'm not the educator. But those are my issues and concern. And Dr. Kane, I guess you would be the one to respond to those, if any.
Everyone has those concerns. Everyone has those concerns. Everything that you brought up as a concern because we are in an imperfect system with a virus that no one knows, or that it's new to us, and that we are trying to deal, and we are trying to balance the needs of students and parents who feel like their children can be safe in school, and staff and parents who feel like their children can be safe in school. So that's what we're here tonight, because just like you brought your concern verbally, the board received a lot of feedback that Ms. Bridges talked about, some saying start school, some saying exactly what you're saying. And that's why this is a difficult position for the board, because they're stewards of the school system, and they are going to make a very tough decision tonight of when and how we are going to start school. I make a recommendation. I have made a recommendation. The board is going to question us on that. We have the staff here to answer that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot, no matter what they decide, there are going to be a lot of people who are upset.
Well, I understand upset. I just don't want them dead. Will the board and will you guys be listening or hearing from the ISD personnel, or have you already?
Ms. Bridges, have we heard, do you feel like the staff has been able to communicate to the board? And
Yes, ma'am. A number of the people that we heard from are staff members.
Well, I know I've been told by staff that they've been encouraged not to, to keep,
By whom?
well, I would have to get that staff here to tell
I
you
mean,
that. I'm
the
maybe
only-
in that school that they're in.
The only person over them would be the principals. And I know that when we ask principals questions, they, like we did a survey on should we start 2 days later, should we have the fair days, that many of them already have a teacher group ready, and they just do that teacher group serve, and then kind of get a vote or a feel for the teacher. Some of them do as many teachers as they can, some of them do fewer. So we feel like that the principals have been very open because they have nothing to gain from not truly reflecting the feelings of the staff on their campus.
I don't know. That's just what's been told to me. So,
Well, if they give you more specifics, would you share those with me? Because I'll be happy to look into it, but I can't look into some teachers are saying some people are telling them not to do something.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah, it was given to us through the
Because I promise you,
NAACP.
I'll look into it.
I'll be happy to share it
When
with
is
you.
our time
Yeah.
up?
Yeah.
Oh, a hotspot issue. Actually, Mr. Calden, I believe we're going to go not to hotspots this year, but he has an arrangement with AT&T that we will pay a $10 fee. Are we still on that?
That was what was talked about today. We filled out a survey with TEA about connectivity issues, devices and hotspots. I was just on a webinar a little while ago. TEA has allocated $200 million, the state legislature has allocated $200 million in funding for these devices. They're getting together pricing, getting together order information. It should be here at some point in August. Don't believe it will be the first day of school. But yes, ma'am, those plans are being put in place by the state to get us more devices and more hotspots.
So our first choice is to pay the $10. Our second choice would be to buy the little portable hotspot, and the third choice would be using the buses like in places where people can still access.
Some combination of those three, yes, ma'am. The buses may be a little bit more efficient than buying extra hotspots, but yes, some combination of getting what or using what the state will allow us, using the resources we already have, and then procuring more. The issue we're going to run into on the procurement side of things is there's going to be 1,000 other districts doing the exact same thing, and those are probably going to be hard to come by, but we'll do our best to get as many devices as we need.
Thank you. Did I answer all of them?
So when am I hearing this to take effect? Will it be when school starts or later on?
Well, as soon as we know the day school starts. I mean, we're
okay.
kind of planning for Thursday or the Thursday of the 13th or Monday of the 17th. I mean, we're kind of planning for both. We've known school's going to start, and so we've been working on this. Like we've been working on grants. We've been buying extra hotspots. We've been buying extra laptops. So we are working on trying to get as much information out there. But if there is someone that you know that didn't have one last year, we need to know that. And in fact, we thought we were doing a good job trying to find out from staff and from kids who didn't show up, why aren't you communicating through us online?
Okay, I'll ask that. But one of the
Please.
things that I hear is, especially among the personnel that had spoken to us, is that, fear of retaliation. If I bring up what I'm going to say, will no longer be working. And I will say, I retorted that couldn't possibly be true. So,
Thank you.
well, I hope I didn't lie to him.
Well, we have a system now, Campus Education Improvement Council, that they can ask questions of their peers anonymously to go to a meeting with the principal, so they don't have to fear that anymore.
Okay.
Now, and I also dare say, I don't know anyone, I have been here this is my third year, I don't know anyone who's gotten in trouble for speaking their mind. In fact, at times, it seems like people feel very free to speak their minds, and we welcome that.
All right. Well, those were my interests. Thank you for listening to me.
And thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move to our action item, which is consideration and possible action to approve the fall 2020 school year guidance and mitigation guidelines. As I said earlier, I'm gonna go to each trustee individually, questions, comments, take notes, and then when everyone's done speaking, then I'll entertain a motion. I'm gonna start with you, Ms. Timmerman, over here to my left. And if you know who to address the question to on the staff, Dr. Kane or whatnot, feel free to.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that when I read the emails today, I was very happy to see that there was a good representation of community people, teachers, parents, grandparents, so that was really good to see. And so what I did, when I saw things keep coming up and coming up and coming up, I thought, okay, this is something people need to hear. So two of mine were just like what was said. One, and this kept coming up all the time, masks for the little ones. People want masks on our little students. And probably more than half of the ones I read on the guidelines said that. They also wanted a clearer plan for the little ones. If they don't wear masks, what's going to happen if one of them become sick with the virus? I think you probably need to address those.
I do not have the mind of TEA, but I'm assuming they set the guidelines the way they did because of the difficulty of getting children in a certain age group to wear masks. We don't want to make the environment so restrictive that learning can't take place. Masks are not even recommended for children 2 years and younger because of the chance of choking, different things like that. So I feel like more and more about what we hear, and I know this is nebulous and I apologize for that, but we're hearing more and more about the fact that children don't tend to get it as often. They don't tend to get as sick as often, but now we're starting to hear that they also don't tend to transmit the virus as often. So in my mind, I don't think children 3rd grade and younger not wearing masks presents a huge risk. It probably does present some risk, but I don't believe when you outweigh the risk does not outweigh the benefits of letting children have a little bit of freedom. They're going to be so restricted anyway, it's going to be difficult to teach. So I think if you add masks in that mix for children that young, it's going to be really difficult. You know more about that than I do, Ms. Timmerman. Right. You've been in the trenches a long time.
That's why we follow the governor's guidelines, because once we start kind of veering from the governor's guidelines, then it's like the TEA guidelines about everything that they want us to do. So we were just adhering to them. Mm-hmm. I guess we assumed they knew something we didn't, or they wouldn't have allowed that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern, and that's the only reason I bring it up. Like I said, it just kept coming up over and over and over. From teachers too, of the young ones.
Of the younger ones, and I do understand that. It's hard not to be motivated by fear in this kind of a situation, but I think we're going to have to really fight not to let fear rule us. We're going to have to let logic and evidence-based science rule us. And, we have this tendency to want to do everything possible to prevent the spread. Well, I understand that, but again, the benefits don't outweigh, the risk of children not being educated and all this being for nothing. And you asked another question, Ms. Timmerman, and by the time I walked up here, I forgot what it was.
Some were wondering in the rooms where there's no mask, if a student gets the virus, then will the whole class be sent home? Since none of them are protected.
We're protected. At this point, we're not saying that. We're just saying we're going to move them to another classroom. We won't know. Like if a student becomes ill at school, we're not going to know for days if they're COVID positive. So sending everybody home till you get that result back might not be effective either. So if you have a child that test positive and did not get sick at school. That's a little bit different. And I'm glad Mr. Alvenshine's coming up to help me here. But currently the plan is not to send the whole class home.
And I doubt that there's any room in the district where there will be no masks, meaning the governor's order makes it a penalty, subject to $250 fine for anyone 10 and over not wearing a mask. The governor's order doesn't apply to the 9-year-olds and younger. And so we're taking a similar stance. We're not applying this universal requirement to kids 9 years and younger for many of the reasons Melissa said, science-based reasons, and also the logistical reasons, just knowing how hard it would be to enforce upon 4-year-olds in pre-K, the 5-year-olds in kindergarten, and so forth and so on. But there are going to be parents of kindergartners, parents of first graders, parents of second graders, parents of third graders that want their child in a mask. And so I believe you're going to have kiddos in those rooms wearing masks. It just won't be universal. Also, we're going to be adhering to distancing. And so that requirement of what is close contact, it's being within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes without a mask. And so, yes, our kindergarten rooms, our first grade rooms, our second grade rooms, as Nurse Bousquet said, it's a different kind of year. It's a hard year, but we're going to have the kids further apart, spaced out in ways that we haven't done in years past. But we're going to be trying to keep distance so that we can keep our kids in school.
On that subject, Nurse Bousquet, do we have any requirements for our face coverings? I've had parents ask me, what are they N95? Are they any type of fabric? What specifically?
No, TEA did not restrict non-surgical mask or fabric mask or anything like that. It does not have to be N95, just face coverings.
One of the other questions that probably came up more than the mask was, and we know this is true, any educator, parents will always send their kids sick because they have to go to work. And they'll give them a little Advil so they don't have a temperature, blah, blah, blah. And so there's a lot of people out there that are very concerned about parents, the responsibility of taking temperatures being put on the parents, because a lot of parents aren't even home when the kids go to school. So is there a possibility that we could take temperatures as the kids and adults come into school?
I mean, I can answer this one. TEA told us not to. This is one that they explicitly said, we don't recommend you taking temperatures because you get a false sense of security. The kids generally don't present temperatures with COVID. So TEA expressly told us they do not recommend doing daily temp checks on kids. And it's very hard for me to ever tell the district to do something against the express guidance of TEA. They didn't give us express guidance on the mask. We're just following the general guidance that's been set for 10 and up. There was express guidance to not do the daily temp checks.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Junior high and high school, will the classroom, all the classrooms that students been in that day be disinfected if they're sent home with COVID, or only the classroom where the student was sent from with the symptoms? That was a question that came up a few times.
Kind of feels like musical chairs. So probably Mr. Gomez is a better person to answer this question, but the plan is, from what I understand, is that they're disinfected daily. And if a student had gone to a class all day long, every class that they went to, I would expect that class to be disinfected, as all classes are to be disinfected daily. I think that's the answer, but I'll yield to the expert.
Good evening, everyone. And yes, ma'am, we're going to disinfect every classroom every single day, every single evening.
Good, thank you. This is probably for you too, Dr. Avery. Is there a possibility that, a lot of the parents are concerned, and especially of the younger ones, they don't get to take their kids to school the first day and all that, and some are going to a new school. It was brought up several times about virtual tours being made of the schools so that they could be sent to the parents and they could look at them with their kids. Oh, here's your cafeteria, here's this, here are the precautions. Has that been talked about?
Yes, it has, actually. That was the topic of our cabinet meeting this morning, I believe, because we reviewed, not every comment, but we reviewed some of the comments, and that was one of the ones that was discussed. I know our junior highs have done kind of a virtual orientation earlier this spring, and Mr. Zantz here can speak about Finley, but that was prior to knowing how we were going to start the year. So that has been discussed, and I can yield to Ms. Mott too if she'd like to give a little bit more info on that.
Yes, we're going to be meeting with principals later this week, as Dr. Avert is, and talking about those virtual tours, so important for our kindergarten students as well as students who are new to the campus. We're also talking about giving an option for kindergarten parents, the really scary, dropping your kiddo off for the first time. Typically, we let them walk down to the classroom with their student. We even have a boohoo breakfast for them. We do lots of things for our parents. It's a difficult time for them. And since we won't be able to let them into the classroom, into the hallways, we're talking about doing an optional 8:15 possible start for those kindergarten students. I think it'd be very scary just to drop your kindergartner off for the first time and drive away. So I think if there weren't as many kids coming in the building and parents could feel a little bit better about making eye contact with that principal as they're dropping off, having lots of support there in terms of cabinet support, curriculum support, all hands on deck that day to welcome those students into our campus, make sure that they get down the right hallway to the right place. I think that would help our kindergarten parents feel a little bit better. I know it's not the perfect situation for them, but it would help if they can make eye contact with that principal, assistant principal, counselor, and know who's receiving them. So we're looking at that optional start. It won't work for every parent, but if it works for them, we definitely want to provide that, help out a little bit. Videos from their teachers, videos showing how they walk into the building down to their classroom, and that really helps for our younger students. And we definitely plan on getting those pushed out.
Good, that's excellent. Dr. Avert, this is probably you too. What will happen to students who refuse to follow protocol?
Well, I feel certain we're not going to be issuing $250 fines, but just as in any protocol that we have, whether it's a dress code protocol or an ID protocol, I would expect principals and assistant principals to do their very best to get students down to the office so they can talk to them about what we need them to do. The bottom line is we have an option right now. You have an online option for if you're adamant against wearing a mask or don't feel comfortable coming to school. There's we're hearing two sides of that coin. One, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't believe it's necessary to wear a mask. And then there's the folks that feel like it's not safe to come to school because we're not through the worst of the pandemic yet. Okay, so we've got kind of both sides of that coin. On the side of the coin that folks is that I don't want to wear a mask because I just don't want to, then we have the option to do online learning is still there. And so I would encourage them to exercise that option if that's what they choose to do. If a student is adamant about not following the guidelines that we have, and there's even been some discussion of whether or not this guideline is this the law? And Mr. Aubenschein has educated me on the fact that the governor has the authority to do this. He has done it, and so therefore we need to follow the rules. We can do our best. I think our principals and assistant principals are pretty good about convincing students about what the right thing it is that they could do, and that they can be very persuasive. And so I would expect them to do that while making good, sound decisions in the process. At the end of the day, if we got somebody that just won't comply, we're going to have to send them home. and we have to have a parent conference, probably by phone, where we can hopefully convince parents that they can either exercise their option for online learning, or if they're going to come to school, which is great, we want them there, then these are the guidelines that they have to follow.
Okay. You touched on this the last time, but dress code for the mask.
Sure.
Somebody brought up bandanas. Are they going to be acceptable? What will be the acceptable face covering?
So I think that the face covering rules are pretty permissive right now. I mean, I have a mask that I got at Globe Life at the new Ranger Stadium when I went on the tour. I've worn it, it's pretty comfortable. It has a picture on the front of it. A bandana, if that's the cloth covering that they have, right now, I don't see a prohibition against it. Obviously, I think in the past, we've had some prohibitions against certain color bandanas for certain reasons. I think we know what those reasons are. And I would say if school administrators believed that there was some sort of message being sent by a particular color bandana, then they would have to go ahead and ask that not be something that they wear. I would prefer, if I was the principal, I'd prefer them to have something like what I have on, or several ones that I see in the room, or a surgical type, not a surgical, but a medical type mask, or even a face covering like the neck gaiter that Mr. Avenstein's wearing right now that can be pulled up and down. That's what I would advise over a bandana if possible. But right now, it doesn't permit it. I mean, it doesn't prohibit it.
Okay. This is probably you too.
Gotcha.
In the guidelines, in several places, it says when possible, when possible, when possible. And some of the emails question why we weren't stricter on that, because that left like room for not doing it. Like social distancing when possible, or sanitizing after use when possible.
I think, well, when you write it that way, you don't paint yourself into a corner that says, we will, because there's going to be some times when social distancing may not be possible, but when you are wearing your mask and everybody is cooperating, I'm talking at the secondary level, then we're not violating the close contact definition. So if we both have our face covering on, and even though Mr. Call and I may be within 6 feet of each other, we're not giving exposure to each other because we're following that guideline. So there'll be times when social distancing may not be possible, and that might, to the best, we can do the best we can during a passing period, for example. But there's a whole lot of kids in that building, and even if we do stagger it to where we do it by grade level, 800 freshmen moving at one time, there's a good chance they're going to be standing next to each other. And so that's kind of why when you use the term when possible, is just because that. If it's possible, we're going to try to do it.
Well, and like some of the classrooms, particularly Wyoming, are very smaller classrooms, just because it was built 104 years ago, and we will still have a certain number of kids in there. Now, we may ask some teachers to clean out some of the things in their room to make for more room for students, but even then, we have a lot of smaller classrooms that we want to arrange as much as possible, but sometimes, like Dr. Averett said, I don't know when they line up, even though we say, okay, don't forget social distancing, they may not all be exactly 6 feet apart, and this person may go talk to this person, and then the teacher says, we're not social distancing. So it can't, the cafeteria, I don't know that when we skip every second or third seat, it'll be exactly 6 feet apart. And the kid, like you're facing this way, the kid behind you may be facing the other way, but y'all may not be that far apart. But the fact that everybody's facing a different way and we're skipping seats, so we can have lunch and it's not too early and it doesn't go too late. So the when possible, we mean it. It's just that we are, it won't be that exact because we're dealing with kids.
I just have one more.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is what Ms. Jefferson brought up too, our special needs kids, with taking into account their disabilities and wearing a mask, and some of them can't, those types of things.
I might phone a friend here and have
That's
Ms.
right.
Brandy Kuchowski, our newly.
This would be a good introduction to the board for our new special ed director.
I'm sorry, I didn't even see you over there.
And so,
I can answer, but I don't know if you
that's a
need the
good
answer you want
segue,
me to
Dr.
give.
Averett.
Hello. Those are good questions, and we have been taking a lot of time to look at how to address that. So first of all, students that have sensory issues or things like that, we're going to work on that as far as individualizing what those masks look like and how they're going to wear them. You know, this is a life skill. Our job is to teach these students to see if they can wear the mask. Now, some kids, you're right, they're going to have a hard time. They're going to struggle with that. Our goal and expectation would be, if they're third grade and up, we're going to teach that skill. However, there are some that we know aren't going to be able to do it, and that's going to be a case-by-case basis. And so when that happens, we are working on guidance for those teachers and the paras and everybody else that's interacting in that classroom as far as social distancing, having changes of clothes, wearing a mask and gloves, and working in that way. So, and we'll have more guidance about that here pretty soon.
Also, Ms. Pajewski, if you would explain because the special ed classrooms are smaller and they do have one or more paras in there, how that the teacher, in these cases, will be teaching some online and some in class?
So we're working on that. We're trying to align as much as we can with everybody else because we're inclusive and that's what we want to do. But there's going to be opportunity for certain times because we typically have 2 paras and 1 teacher in classroom. And depending on the numbers that come, we're taking a look at how that's going to work. If the whole class is there and there's only 1, we might get somebody else to do it. But if not all the class comes, then that teacher will be able to do online instruction as well at certain times because their paras will be there to support the others.
And sometimes that instruction may be something, watching them and repeating something that the para could actually do.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be
And
very
even-
flexible with that.
Yes, ma'am. And even in the spring when we first started this, and of course we didn't have great planning going on, we were just doing the best we can. The paras were responsible for reaching out to parents, calling, trying to Zoom to help out with that social emotional part. And as far as the education and the lessons go, to follow up and see if they need any guidance. So we'll utilize all hands on deck and we'll get them their education that they need.
Thank you.
I would just add one piece. There are 5 to 9 pallets full of PPE that are designated for Waxahachie ISD right now at Region 10. And Mr. Gomez is making plans this week to go get them. Nurse Bousquet is going to have them designated for campuses. But it's not really one size fits all. There are in the tens of thousands disposable masks that we'll be able to give students if they don't have their own mask with them. Of course, you can see about 30 employees here tonight, and all of them have on masks, and none of them have been purchased by WISD. So we know there's going to be students that show up with their favorite college or their favorite sports team or you name it, kind of mask they want to wear. But we have masks for students. We have masks for teachers. And we also have face shields. I think the number designated for us was 1,300 face shields. And there will be a lot of use of face shields with special ed teachers and special ed kids so that you can see that face interaction, but then not be covering the nose and mouth with the cloth, but rather the shield, which meets our definition of face covering, prevents the spray from the nose and from the mouth, but allows our special ed kids, our speech pathologists, you name it, to then have that face-to-face interaction.
As well as the plexiglass that we're putting up. So we'll be doing that for the speech therapist. If there's that close contact, we are going to do the plexiglass and then also the face shield when we can.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rogers?
I'm going to keep mine short, and I've already spoken to Mrs. Bridges about this, but I think it'd be helpful at some point to come out with a one sheet, maybe FAQ, some highlights, some need to knows, maybe our top 10 most popular questions, and I think she's on top of that. That's the only suggestion really I had. Not any questions at this point.
Okay.
Tornado?
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I have some questions and some comments. Can you hear me okay? I need to take that off so you can hear me better. One thing that I did hear and saw some feedback on is the possibility of a relaxed dress code. So I just wanted to throw out there that I'm all for that, especially in the case of, I'm thinking about the younger kids and teachers who, you know, have germs on them in a normal day. And,
Normal germs.
And now they're going to be using cleaning products and all that. So I just
Right.
wanted to say them. And
Thank you for asking that, Ms. Tornado. We've had a lot of questions from staff, and we've talked to the principals, and we are looking at loosening the dress code. Now, not changing it, but understanding that between now and whenever this is going to be over, that the staff would be able to wear jeans and a spirit shirt for either their campus, the district, or I think somewhere college ones, when it's college day. And so, but we're not planning on changing the dress code, but just working with principals. And again, we want them to feel comfortable that if they want to, I'd say wash their clothes more often, like they don't wash their clothes, but if something that you would feel comfortable about every day if you would like to do that. So that would be very cost effective.
thank you. I'm sure you're looking at this, and this is just something that, actually, I didn't hear this from anybody, but it was a thought that came to my mind when I was up late thinking about this, like I think we've all been doing every night. Regarding our teachers and staff, does it look like we're able to accommodate? Like I know in some workplaces, if someone is concerned about being in the workplace, if they're at risk, if they have a physical issue or an illness that they're prone to, surely we're looking at those teachers first and helping them if they want to be distant or distance learning teachers, and are we able to?
Where we can, in some instances.
Okay.
Just the report from Ms. Pajowski, because special ed is unique and we don't expect those students to be able to be taught online. Those teachers will be expected to be at school.
Gotcha.
And we
Gotcha.
try, so the welding teacher, the cosmetology
Right.
teacher, because we
Right.
can't teach those online.
Exactly.
Now, I think it's going to be more difficult at the secondary level because there's not that many physics teachers, okay?
Gotcha.
But
Right.
third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade, if it balances, it would be nice if it balances out that 20 teachers have said, we want to teach at home, we're elementary, and 440 kids want to teach at home. Want to be taught at home. That would be perfect. If we'll be bringing something back from the District of Innovation asking to be excused for this time from 22 to 1 for those days that, okay, let's say we start out, we got those teachers at home, they got 22 to 1. We got our teachers at school in the elementary, they're 22 to 1. But at the end of the 6 weeks, we have a bunch of kids at home who want to go back to school. Well, that's going to make for
Right.
larger than
Gotcha.
22 classes, but it wouldn't balance out to move a teacher because that's third grade and this is fourth grade. And we have to make those decisions like that. Okay, so anytime we can be accommodating, and there's a difference if you have a medical note from a doctor and a preference. We want to try to do that, but there are some people who we will not be able to accommodate. There are others that they want to teach fifth grade social studies, and they're going to have fifth grade social studies all year.
Okay. With all this talk about cleaning and more cleaning and more cleaning, are we going to have enough custodial staff?
Mr. Gomez, you're on again. You may be the most popular man tonight.
I know.
The guy with the Lysol.
Yeah.
At this moment, ma'am, we do have enough custodial
Okay.
staff to go ahead and manage. And we've made provisions to maybe hire some temp workers also.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and help anytime we have absences or excessive absences.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Regarding the distance learning and the platforms being used and how that's going to be rolled out, I'm just throwing out some encouragement to let families know about that as soon as possible, just so that they can make decisions on, I have heard the question come up from parents, well, I'm stuck on trying to make a decision. I might be leaning towards distance learning. What is that going to look like?
Dr. Hull, could you just give a brief overview? I know your plan isn't fully fleshed out, but I think it's fleshed out enough for us to reassure parents.
There have been a lot of questions, especially looking back at last spring, and is it going to look just like that? And the answer is no. So that was kind of a hit and miss and hit the road running type of thing to put into place. TEA, because of rigor and because of possible academic gaps that might be created from a loose type of an online learning system, has really made a more stringent plan and recommendation. The plans have to be turned in by October 1st. You also have to have a summary of that out to parents 2 weeks before school starts. So the things that are included in the plan would be like the instructional schedule. We have to put together a plan that gives every student online a full day opportunity and a minimum of 180 minutes for elementary to get ADA accountability and a minimum of 240 minutes for secondary. It also requires us to have office hours for the teachers so that parents can contact them on a daily basis and us to keep records on that. Then it also requires that our material designs for curriculum align. So in other words, what is going on campus as far as curriculum, and we use TRS, would have to align and have the same rigor and equity online as it does in the classroom setting, especially since there's that transition back and forth. So we want to be transparent about that. We are using programs either released by TEA and activities to enhance our already TRS curriculum that we use. We are using programs that we currently have. We are using a new assessment tool, MAP. In fact, we've trained on it twice already, and we'll roll that out as well at teacher professional development when they return. We also are required to track that and track those minutes, not only for ADA, but also for credit, especially in secondary. And so we have ClassLink, which is a single sign-on, and also TEA is releasing a learning management system. We're not sure what that is yet. It should have been out last week, we were told, but it's still not out. I looked just before I got here. And so they're going to roll out that, and we can apply for that learning management system. So all of the Seesaw and the Google Classroom, which we used last spring, those will still be the platforms that we use, but they will be embedded into a system that can have tracking ability of those minutes. So that'll help us on our ADA and reporting on that. And then the final thing is making sure that we have professional development. And so we not only have an academy for district level staff on the new systems that we're putting in place, we also have a teacher academy. We also have a parent or partners in education academy, and it will have everything from how do you log on through ClassLink on the website, how do you get into Seesaw Plus, how do you set up a learning environment, all the way up to how you use all the tools that we have. So that's what we're working on, and we're building a crosswalk which would tie all of that together so the teachers can use that as a lesson plan template as well, and maybe save them some time, because that was some of the questions that came out in the survey as well. How can CNI help us? And so if we tie TRS to online systems, to resources, to bilingual resources, to GT resources, to SPED resources, and have it all in one document, it's a 1-2 go place. So that's what we're looking at, but we're still working every day to build that up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more, I know this is a different topic now, I think this might be Nurse Bousquet. Consulting physicians, does the district have anyone that we're talking to, or I've noticed some other districts have done that, so I'm just curious.
Sure. We have a district physician, Peggy Linguist, and we have definitely been communicating with her and getting her opinion on several topics. As far as an actual start date, I realize sitting there that is not a question I've asked her, and I do want to do that. I have talked to some other physicians in the community, and I'll be very honest, they're a little hesitant about us starting on August 13th. They think maybe pushing it back just a little bit would be helpful. But I do not know what Dr. Linguist thinks about that particular subject right now, and she is our district physician.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Okay, regarding a teacher that is the only one that teaches, this might be more secondary, maybe like the only one that teaches their subject, will we be able to give them some assistance if they have to do both in-person and online teaching?
I'm going to give that one a whirl. So this was a topic of discussion that I had today with one of our junior high principals, and really the challenge of dealing with that and knowing we can't ask parents today if they're going to decide to do online learning. We have to wait until 10 days prior to the first day of school, and if we're going to make any decisions tonight about when that might be, we'll have to obviously abide by that. So there's going to be a short turnaround between how many students we believe are going to decide to stay at home and do online learning versus how many are going to do it in person. And so one of the things we talked about today with one of the principals I met with was, what is that going to look like? Do we think that the chances are a teacher, like a secondary teacher, may have a combination of online and in person? And this first scenario we kind of talked about was it seemed kind of crazy, where we would find out that, let's say, I'm a 6th grade science teacher and I have 6 sections of 6th grade science, but I have 150 students. Well, 40 of my students decide they want to be online, so now I have 110 of my students are going to be there. And so and there's not enough for me to spread around between the campus, and so would I have a section that might just be online? That is a possibility, and that would be tough. I'm just saying that would be hard.
But they would still have their conference period.
Of course. So, or there's the thought of if we have enough teachers in a subject area that teach that one content, that could one teacher be designated as the online teacher, or maybe split 50-50 versus that. So we don't really I don't have a definitive answer yet, because it's kind of hard to know how many students are going to. Our preliminary survey we thought was about a third, but in the last 2 weeks things may have changed. Trends may be going better. I've heard that the trends are looking a little bit better for the numbers, and if that's the case, if that continues to happen over the next 2 weeks, and people that may be sitting on the fence right now say, I'm feeling better about sending my child to school, it could obviously flip back the other direction. And so people that were saying gung-ho, they're going to school, now maybe feeling, oh, wait a minute, the numbers are going up. So a lot of words to say. It's going to be kind of hard to tell, but obviously I think we have a C&I department that's going to support our teachers if they have to do all of one, part of one. I feel like we have the support for them, and I thought Dr. Holt could probably answer that better than me, but I believe we do.
Okay.
And that's not our choice. We will do everything to avoid that. It's like multiple preps. Anytime we can make certain teachers don't have multiple preps, we do. But inevitably, there's someone who's got 3 preps, and because it just works out that way. That's not our goal. But if we can't fix it, we can't fix it. We just hope that next year we make certain that teacher just has 1 prep.
Right. Yeah. And all the folks in the CTE department are like, what do you mean just 3 preps?
Yeah.
I got 5 preps. I mean, that happens a lot, so in that department.
Okay. Now I just have a comment and then I'm finished. I'll let somebody else have a turn. From all of the feedback and all of the comments and some of the talk that you hear from teachers, I think this speaks to how dedicated our teachers are because they want to do a good job. I think wherever we can, if we can just give them reassurance that, because there's no right way with all of this. And I think some of them are nervous and scared and So whenever we can
Well,
do that, I
those-
hope that will,
Thank
because
you
I think
for-
they want to do a good job and they're worried.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why, like loosening the dress code, they love wearing jeans, okay? And some of it is because of the health concerns they have. But another part is, it's one of those little things that we do that just brings cheer into a teacher's heart. Like the added 2 days. If you had asked me when we left the meeting, when we had that meeting, Wednesday, I would have said, no, I really don't have any intention of changing the calendar, but after talking to the principals and the principals talking to their staff, there was a real feeling on the part of the teachers they needed at least 2 more days. And that's why I have changed my recommendation to 2 more days. Whenever the principals call us, or there's a way, like Dr. Averett talks about, or Ms. Mott, or Dr. Holt, here's some things we can do to make their lives easier. Because there's going to be sometimes we have to say no, and it's going to be harder. It's like the 3 preps, or the teacher who may have to teach an online, and we know there's going to be those kinds of cases, but if we can show in as many other cases that anytime we can make it easier, because when you look back at, I think it was March 3rd when we left for spring break, happily, carefree, ignorant, thinking life was going to go on, and then we come back and nothing has been the same since. And in a week or so, our C&I teachers, our C&I staff and our principals somehow shifted us completely from in-house to online. We got devices distributed. It wasn't pretty. We got it as many as we could, but we were out there. Our staff was out there helping. But since that day that we came back and we found out we're not going to come back, our teachers and our staff have worked so hard to make it work in an impossible situation. And the principals have done a good job of punting whenever they had to say, okay, we're going to start picking up stuff, but it'll be outdoors. We've changed Operation First Day of School from kids getting to go in and pick out their own backpack to being outdoors. I mean, we've been very creative, and our staff at every turn has been there. So even though there's going to be some times that we're going to say no and not like it, we're trying to do those little things and then big things when we can to do exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Ms. Kriegel?
One of my major concerns is, of course, we have children that desperately need to get back to school, and we don't know what the future, we found out last March that we don't know what the future holds. I mean, we may make all these plans and then the state shut us down. I actually heard a rumor from Austin today to that effect. But I understand that some school districts, and I know at one time the commissioner talked about that if you didn't have access to food or to the computers or hotspots, that we had to provide some kind of center, something for
Right,
those
we have to
students.
provide instruction, whether it be delivering paper lessons.
Okay, so so delivering paper lessons is one of the
That's
options.
well, yes.
Okay.
If we cannot provide the technology and the hotspot or a reasonable expectation, then we are to, and that's how we found out last time we couldn't find all of our kids because we couldn't contact them online, so we started looking for them so we could deliver packets.
Okay, and so packets.
That's still an option.
Okay, but I understand some school districts are actually providing like a one-place center for the kids. Have y'all heard this? I just heard rumors, legends of school districts providing like a center for the kids that desperately need it to go to. I've heard DeSoto.
For food?
Yeah, for food and for them to stay all day and have do their online instruction at a school setting.
So why aren't they just in school?
Huh?
Why aren't they just in school?
I believe, and this is I could be wrong.
Okay.
I promise you, Ms. Kriegel, but I believe that the schools that are doing that are the schools that are doing what's been called a soft start or a slow start, and that is the state gave us the ability to have up to 3 weeks, and then they stretched it to 4, and then they've even said you could go as far as 8 weeks of online only. But then TEA said, if you do that, if you go online only, you must provide a means for students. You have to ensure that all students have devices and all students have networks. And in some of those districts, to then make sure that there's a place they can come with a network, they've opened their school. We wouldn't be in that category because we're talking about opening school. And so a student that didn't have online resources at home or a network at home, they can come to our school. We actually have school. Like in DeSoto, Dallas County has said you can't have school till September 8th, and I believe those ISDs, DeSoto, Duncanville, Cedar Hill, and again, I could be wrong, but I believe then they've said when we open on September 8th, it's going to be online only for the first 3 weeks. And so they're providing a place at the school to have a network for the online learning. So it's online only, but there's a place they can come to school.
Okay.
That's not applicable to us since we have school.
Does that sound all right, Mr. Quigley?
Yes, it does, and I guess would that be an option?
You
if-
also mentioned food. Mr. Calden, would you address how we're going to help our online learners who are qualify for free reduced price lunch? I'm sorry, I thought, Mr. Quigley, I thought you said food too.
So as Dr. Kane was mentioning about food, we're going to have at Global, any student who is doing distance learning is welcome to come and get a meal. And so those students who are doing distance learning that qualify for a free meal can still come get their free meal. Those students who qualify for a reduced price meal can come get their reduced price meal. And any student who just wants a meal, if they are a regular paying student, then they can come and pay for the said meal, even if they're doing distance learning, and we're going to have that over at Global. Starting.
And again, we're keeping it at one school because we're trying to keep visitors and as much out of the other schools.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go to that question first. No one has addressed, I don't believe, transportation yet, and that's one of the questions I'm getting asked a lot.
Okay.
What
I
are
don't
we
see-
thinking as far as our buses and being out of, because our buses have been overcrowded in the past.
The bus, correct, and you don't just go down to the lot and buy a bus. You have to order buses, and so you're kind of stuck with the number you have. One with the third few. Go ahead, Jenny. Okay, good.
He's not with us tonight, but I did speak with him about transportation. They have already installed hand sanitizer stations on every single bus. Will be training the bus drivers in some extra cleaning and sanitizing processes. They will be working to social distance on the bus whenever possible. They will work to have siblings sit together, things like that when it's possible. And they will also ask that kids wear masks on the bus, and the bus drivers will wear masks as
And
well.
we should have just mathematically a third fewer kids on each bus. Now, it won't work out exactly like that, but that will help.
Yes, and Mr. Gerke we sent out a survey that will actually close tomorrow. We sent it out to all families. He wants to get an idea of the number of students who plan to ride the bus so that he can, figure out what buses will look like. And so I will send him those results tomorrow when the survey closes.
And you said all students on the bus will wear masks. Does that include our pre-K through third grade students?
They may not have masks,
Not under the current.
Yeah, 'cause
Now,
they may not
again,
have them.
parents can have their children wear masks no matter, if they're pre-K to third grade. They can send a mask. I know I bought my daughter a little chain to wear around her neck that has clips that go on the earpieces of her mask so that it's easy, she can't lose it. So I think there are lots of great ways that parents of the younger kids can
I
get
think
around.
some kids may think it's fun if the teacher plays it and the parent plays it right. The kids could think it's
My
cool.
3-year-old thinks a mask is the most fun thing in the entire world, so.
Okay, so you're saying that the pre-K through thirds will not be required, even though they're on the same bus with other students?
Right.
They will not be
Not in the
required.
class.
We don't transport pre-K kids.
Oh, we don't? Okay.
No, ma'am, no, we don't
Okay.
transport pre-K kids.
Okay.
But kindergarten through third, yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, one question that I've had asked, or I think different people just talking to me about different things and I'm getting different ideas as far as what different what everybody's idea as far as what's going to be required is. And I believe at some point the teachers need to know, what the expectation is going to be. Because some people think that, say, you can wear a shield and not a mask. Others say you can wear you have to wear a mask all the time. But then there's the question if you could wear a shield instead of a mask. And so last time the definition was a little confusing to the teachers.
All right, and we can work to help make sure that there's clarity, but
it could be
face
the wording in
covering,
it.
face covering under our guidelines means either one. So you could wear a shield.
Or both.
And you're fine. You can wear a mask, you're fine. And there are some that lawyers will use the phrase belt and suspenders. I mean, just to be doubly covered, wear them both. But yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification, and I know that they do
shields are some
too.
of the things that we're getting shields and masks from the state for the staff.
Right, I understand, but there has been that question come up. Okay. Okay, I had a question that came up when Ms. Timmerman asked about this. I believe it was Ms. Timmerman that asked about disinfecting the rooms at the high school. Or I believe it was at the high school. But anyway, they're going to be, if someone, it's any of the schools that the kids move. So a child gets sick or a student gets sick in one classroom, and, it's determined that they have COVID. But it's fifth period, or let's say at the high school, it's third period. So are you going to also disinfect first and second period because those students that student that's sick has been in their rooms and, and has may have contaminated everything? Are you going to be disinfecting everywhere the student's been or just the one classroom?
Everywhere that student has been, it will be disinfected. That's
Okay.
our plan.
Okay.
Okay, and we're prepared to go ahead and get that
Okay,
done.
so you're gonna disinfect every classroom that student's been in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And we send a letter home to parents. Now, it may be too late in the day to actually get the letters out that day. But so it depends on what hour and how busy the office is. Because it's easier in the elementary school because we know they've been in Miss Jones's class. But at the high school, at the junior high, they've been in several classes. So,
Right.
but it would be certainly timely that we would get it to them.
Okay. Earlier today, we were talking about some teachers teach multiple subjects, like CTE. They may have 5 different subjects, and they may be the only teacher for that subject. And I guess my question is the expectation that they're going to teach all their different classes, but then also be the online teacher for those classes? And if so, how are they going to get a conference period?
Oh, Dr. Avery?
So, yeah, we did discuss that a few minutes ago, and, the question is, what you ask, if they're a singleton and they're the only person that can teach that particular class, how are they going to be able to serve those students? CTE is a great example, and I'm glad my CTE expert is sitting over there, so I could get, again, phone a friend if necessary. But there may be a situation where, let's say the building trades teacher, one of them is doing online work and the other one's doing the in-person work. We may can swap it off that way, or that one building trades person may have an industrial arts certification that can actually handle maybe the written work for multiple content, CTE content, maybe welding, metal fab, those different kind of things, and can handle the written part of that as being that online instructor. And then for the in-person portion of the course, the students can come to the school and do the in-person portion of the course with the supervision of the actual welding teacher, for example. So that's again, that's one of the things that we've discussed is what a possible solution to that. Dr. Kane mentioned a little while ago, you may only have one AP calculus teacher at WHS because, even though we want every kid that takes algebra 1 in 8th grade to end up in calculus or statistics, That just doesn't happen, unfortunately. Now, a lot of times they take dual credit math, which is great. So, but there may only be one teacher that's teaching AP calculus. And so in that case, there is a chance that that particular teacher may have some students online and most of her students in class. But again, I think we're going to try to mitigate that as much as we possibly can, where we could have a math teacher that, again, may be the person that's supervising the online part. But then if there's a specific question, may have to go, even though they may have the same certification in 8 through 12 math, we all know that the calculus teacher is the calculus teacher for a reason, you know, that they're the expert. They may not be the person that's great at teaching ninth grade algebra. You know, that's the reality. So we may have to just kind of modify that in some way so we get the kids that are in that upper level class and have those really deep, high level questions, that they get to have that contact with that teacher or get to ask that question, but they also get supported on their daily work and assignments by maybe someone else.
I guess my concern is that the teachers at this level, secondary, will receive, even though they may be teaching online and they can teach in person and online, they will receive their regular conference. I'm sorry. My question was that you know, as long as they're receiving a period to do, a class period to do the online part and a class period to do in face, I can understand that, but I don't want to see them having to teach 7 periods and then the 8th period, they're expected to do all of their online, you know, getting a hold of all the online people and reaching them, because, I mean, I don't feel like that's a fair distribution of their time.
Actually,
I think they need a conference period.
Dr. Abbott, I think Mr. Harris met with her staff today and has a plan, if you'd like her to share that.
I'd love to have
Ms. Harris?
Ms. Harris, yeah, thank you.
We need someone a little prettier standing up there instead of Dr. Abbott, okay?
Actually, I met with my staff on Thursday. I met with the leads and invited some others to join us. And I'll be quite candid, all of my teachers are going to get a conference period. Ms. Creedle, you know I would never take a conference period away from my staff. That's just not me. And most of my teachers really, really want to teach those online students. Because so you understand, if a student decides now that they want to do face-to-face, and then for some reason life changes and they have to go online, or vice versa, those students become very fluid in that teacher's classroom, and they would be moving from one section to another. That's a master scheduling nightmare. And so and we posed all of those different scenarios, and what most of our teachers want to do, they want to get their students that are currently on their rosters, and they want to have the ability to lead their classes both online, the majority, both online and face-to-face. There were a couple of exceptions, and we've been able to accommodate those needs. Everyone's still being able to get their conference period, and no conference periods will be taken away.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And all teachers had a say in the way that schedule worked.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, and kind of along those same lines, I just want to be sure that we do our best for the social distancing and follow the protocols in place. And I'm hearing that students are going to be maybe eating in classrooms, and if they are, then you're going to need a guideline as to the square footage and how many kids can eat in that space, because I don't see a class of, say, 25 eating in the classroom and have social distancing enough to be eating in a classroom. So does that make sense?
It does. You know, I can use Finley Junior High, for example, that they've already set their cafeteria up with the use of the common spaces that they have around their cafeteria. That campus is kind of blessed with several kind of common little alcove kind of areas that have benches already built in that can be used as a place to sit and eat your lunch. And they've been able to spread that out. So I don't know that we would have to, for example, on that campus, not even need to have an opportunity for a kid to go to a classroom. I think at the high school, and again, Ms. Harris can come up here and tell me or say something different or better, but I do envision in some content areas maybe band, for example, that the teacher says, yeah, that's fine if you want to come to the band hall and eat your lunch, and that spreads, and they're spread out in the band hall, and they clean up after themselves, and they don't leave a mess and don't abuse that privilege. I see that as an option to limit the number of folks that may be in the actual cafeteria. I know that Ms. Harris says, weather permitting, I mean, the courtyard area that's there, weather permitting, that's a good place to spread out, as long as it's not too terribly hot, which the kids don't seem to mind that. It's just when it's too cold or rainy that's not good. But that's an option too. Again, large campus, lots of places to go. The problem is going to be monitoring it.
Our cafeteria currently capacity is 817. We have reconfigured the cafeteria, and we have it down to where students can eat in the cafeteria, social distancing, and we can accommodate approximately 420 students. I did not want to take away teachers' duty-free lunch period, and so I gave them the option as to whether or not they would allow students to eat in their classrooms. Some of our staff members already do that because they allow students to work on homework, get extra tutoring, and things of that nature. And so I put it out to everyone last week, and I was flooded with emails from staff that were absolutely, yes, students can eat in my classrooms. I mean, we have an amazing set of teachers, and they want those kids there. They want to help them. That also gives them a chance to build those relationships and work on those areas of deficiency, because we've been out of school for almost 6 months. And without fail, Mr. Armstrong, he is absolutely letting the band kids eat in the classroom. The art teachers have all stepped up and said they could have the students eating in their classroom. And then we've ordered new picnic tables so that we can accommodate more students on the patio as well. So we don't have any problem meeting the needs to social distance during lunch at WHS.
Okay, so, I mean, am concerned. I don't want too many eating in a classroom for you to have social distancing.
Yes, ma'am. And they've already, some of the teachers have already come up and they've repositioned their desk to more accommodate that. And they know how many students, when they don't have their mask on, will be allowed to eat in there for lunch. And the teachers have already got those numbers in their minds and sent those to us.
Okay, very good, very good. I guess my last question is kind of a general question, and I'm not sure who it's for, maybe Dr. Averitt or maybe for you, Dr. Kane, or I'm not really sure. What if we had a major outbreak at Waxahachie ISD? What, like the flu numbers, what are the percentages that would have to be sick in order for us to go home?
I have a rule of thumb. I didn't put it in this book because I will always be on the phone with Nurse Bousquet, and if she says, tighten this up more, I want to be able to tighten it up without saying what was in the book. But my rule of thumb is 10%. If 10% of the students are out on a campus for flu or flu-like issues, now there can be more kids out, but 10% for flu or flu-like issues, I will speak to Nurse Bousquet. Should we close it down just to do some deep cleaning for 1 day or 2 days? And the same rule for the district. If the district gets to 10% of flu-like percent, that we would then discuss again, how long should it be closed for? I mean, why do we think the numbers are so high? Should it be 2 days? Should it be 5 days? So we have that safety net of 10% for students with flu. And now, if it's just 2 or 3 campuses, it'll just be 2 or 3 campuses. Okay. Now, I don't know how we're going to deal with that at the end of the year when it comes to student minutes, if it goes over the 7, 5, 6, but we will. We'll worry about that then, but we do have that safety net.
Okay, so 10%, and that would be for COVID also?
Oh, yeah, well, that's why I'm saying flu or flu-like, because they may not say it's COVID. If it's flu-like, it's...
Right, exactly.
We're counting it.
Exactly. And I guess one of my major concerns is substitutes. If we have teachers out ill, and I've been reading everything that I can and hearing everything that I can, and teachers, people, everybody does not necessarily test negative when, after, say, they have it. And I've heard up to 45 days that they're still not testing negative, even though they're not exhibiting any symptoms, but they're not testing negative, and they have to have a negative test in order to come come back to teach, is that correct?
Nurse Biscay, is that correct? I have to go to my medical examiner here. Right. Or whatever the current rule is at the time, that's what we'll be using. I think they've changed that. Remember one time it was 5 days and it was 10 days? So whatever the current rule is what we'll be following.
Right now, but
And the current rule, Dr. Mr.
So the TEA standard for coming back after, if you've had a test, it's going to be a minimum of 10 days from the time you had your test and 3 days where you were symptom-free. So you could come back as soon as 10 days, not 10 business days, but 10 days after a positive test. But you also have to be symptom-free for 3 days and be able to prove that you no longer have the illness. And so that's going to be under medical care. Physicians say you're clear, that you've been clear for at least 72 hours, and it's been at least 10 days since the time you had a positive test. Okay. So it could be as few as 10 days. It could be longer because you have to have 3 solid good days post-illness.
Okay, but what if you're not testing negative? You're still testing positive, even though you're not having any symptoms now, you're past symptoms, but, I mean, so what if you're, because I've heard that sometimes it takes a month or two to test negative.
My suggestion on that would be if we've got a situation where an individual is well, but still actually lab testing positive, we would need a release from their physician for them to come back. That would be my suggestion. A release from their physician that they are okay to return. And I'm not sure what the TEA guidelines, if they even address that.
I think they would be pleased. I mean, anytime we it seems like medical doctors, if they write a note or say this is okay, I mean, as long as it's based on something like that, you've been out this long, if you're positive, but yet there's not one symptom, I think that would be something that would be justifiable and defensible.
Yeah. I think we would be hard pressed to allow someone to return with a positive test without that physician release.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McCutcheon?
I just have a few comments. First off, I totally understand concerns from everyone, whether it be teachers, students, family members, et cetera. I personally know people who have got COVID, so I know it's real. I know it's out there. I have 2 kids that are going to be going to school. One's in 5th grade and one's in 3rd grade. So I've got both sides of the coin as far as masks go. My 3rd grader, lucky enough, is old enough to understand, and she will wear it. And I'll encourage her to keep it on all day long. But I also respect the people who want to do the in-home and have the ability to. Me and my wife both work, so we don't. I do have some, my parents could do it, but I would never put that on them, at this stage of their retirement and whatnot. So based on the guidelines that have been put before us, and I know a lot of you guys have worked extremely hard to do that, all the questions you've been asked today, the answers have been pretty thorough, and I know those guidelines are better than what I deal with on a daily basis myself. So it makes me comfortable to send my child back and know that we're doing everything that we possibly can. So thank you all for what you've done. I know it's not 100% risk-free environment, but with educating our kids to wash their hands and use sanitizer, keep their mask on and distance themselves, it's just a new environment. And if we all pitch in, all we can do is the best we can do. So thank you all, and appreciate what you put together.
Your 3rd grader may be our model for hinting to all the other kids, it's okay to wear a mask.
She might be hanging from the ceiling, but she'll have a mask on.
Mr. Schofield?
Well, I wish there was a perfect answer to this. I don't know that what to say. I kind of echo what Mr. McCutcheon thought and elaborated on. Regardless of what happens here, we're not going to make everybody happy. We're not going to solve every problem. I would like to just remind the people listening, the people in this room, and the people that are making decisions to be flexible, because this thing is going to change. It's going to morph. It's going to look different. You have options. You can stay home or you can come. I think for some of our kids in less fortunate situations, the ability to come to a safe environment where you can get food it might be safer than staying home. There's risk involved for everybody involved, and we just try to be fair and try to do the best we can do. But I don't know what else we can do. So we forge forward and try to live. You get to choose to live, or you get to choose not to. I choose to live, and I hope you will. And just be flexible, be willing to shut down if we need to, be willing to change it if we need to, be willing to protect our staff and kids however we can. And I'm sure a couple of months from now, this is going to look different.
I hope this thing will end.
That's all I have on this section.
Okay, so I have a couple of comments and questions. Probably start with you, Dr. Averett. And I'm actually surprised that no one's mentioned this. Maybe I'm the only one that has a little heartburn. There is no perfect plan, okay? There's never going to be a perfect. The one part in the secondary guidelines that really bothered me a little bit is we're going to allow students to participate in UIL activities and still do at-home learning. Can you give me a little bit of the reasoning behind that?
Right. So first of all, UIL said we can. Initially, that would be something that we would not have done in the past, but UIL gave us clearance to do that. And so there, we talked about this kind of around the room, and there's definitely a sentiment there that, if we're not comfortable coming to school, why would we be comfortable going to football? Or why would we be comfortable going to band? And then there's the sentiment on the flip side of that even though that's maybe an extracurricular activity, it's most likely more controlled than switching classes several times a day and getting in the hallway and all that kind of stuff. And so the one major theme that came out of that conversation is that we wanted to continue to provide the opportunity of students if that's what they wanted. We know that those programs a lot of times are the bridge between us and the student, and that's what they come to school to do. We also had to take into consideration, along those same lines with extracurricular activities, is some of our CTE courses and even some of our dual credit courses, particularly at Global High School, that have a face-to-face requirement that students are going to have to be able to show mastery of those skills or concepts in order to be in that class. The great example is welding. Auto tech is another one. Some of our art classes, ceramics, for example. We can't send a student home with a potter with a wheel. I mean, it's just not feasible. There's some art that we can do at home, yeah, but some of those courses we can't. And so providing students the opportunity to stay in those while if they want to, we've used the term risk a lot of times, and sometimes you're mitigating. The whole document is a risk mitigation document, and so where if you're there all day long and you feel exposed, but you're only there a portion of the day, you feel only a portion exposed. So that's also part of what we thought about when we made that determination.
So those particular classes, are they going to be scheduled at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, or we're going to have kids coming in the middle of the day and leaving in the middle?
Yeah, they do have to provide their own transportation, but if they happen to be at the beginning of the day, they could ride the bus, but their parent would have to pick them up or provide their own. And it's the same thing at the end of the day. If the parent brings them right before the last period, they could ride the bus home.
So and to follow up on that, it was not our desire to flip let's say the high school master schedule on its ear, just to put every auto tech class first period or to allow for that. So we did not alter the schedule. So
and like band, you may be in different band classes. Band's offered all day, and you could be in different band classes.
Yeah, first and second period.
And
yes.
the same thing for fine arts. There's drama, there's different levels of drama and what they're doing, and it's not just first and last period.
That just gives me a little bit of heartburn on trying to figure out.
It gave us some heartburn too.
How all of that's going to be managed. I mean,
I made the final decision after we talked to the staff, and it gave me heartburn because there's some things about that I don't like. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's best for students maybe a little bit harder on us, but we have some kids, like Dr. Averett said, the hook is drama, the hook is band, the hook is basketball, the hook is welding, cosmetology.
I feel that the difficulty in the management of a come and go day possible, and I think that's going to be that is going to be a challenge for the staff. I mean, as much as it would be for the student, or probably more for the staff to manage who's coming and going at certain.
But we deal with come and going all year. I mean, every year too. We have other classes that you leave half day, you leave here.
Yep, community service classes come in and out of the school, and so it's not something that's totally new.
And then I have a question about the online curriculum that's being made for you and Mrs. Mott as well. So from elementary or secondary, is there a minimum time requirement each day that each student has to log in for secondary, each individual class, or elementary as so many hours a day to get credit for that day? And then does it matter what time of the day that they do it? So I'm sorry,
I'm going to let Dr. Holt talk.
I know that's a lot, but
yeah, the difference between whether it's a synchronous model or an asynchronous model kind of has to do with that time period. So I'm going to let Dr. Holt.
So for the minimum requirement, again, we have to provide the opportunity for a full day, but the minimum requirement is 180 for elementary and 240 for secondary. And they still have to meet the credit requirements as well if they're going to take that online. So
and that can be done.
There's no exemption at this point from that.
And that can be done anytime during the day?
It can be done anytime during the day, and with the system that we have in place with ClassLink and then the possible learning management system from TEA that's being released, we'll be able to calculate those times. It'll show us per day how many minutes they spent and in which class periods.
So if a high school student goes online at 5:30 and is done by 9:30, because they're working all day, they would get credit, and they do their work and pass
As
it.
long as they log in on that academic day and do that. Should the system go down, there's also 2 other components where teachers can show progress by reporting that progress out, or they can do it by turning in assignments. But the best way is us to have the system of the reporting management, so.
Mr. President, also, if I could just step back to your last question, just because a student is allowed to come in for drama does not mean they're going to be picked for the class or for the football team, or they get to march in the band. I mean, they will still have the same standards. I don't know if we made that clear, but I just wanted to make certain we did.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, board, everyone has had the opportunity to hear each other's questions, comments. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the fall 2020 school year guidance and disease mitigation. Or if there's some changes you guys want.
Motion to approve as presented.
Motions are second. Motion by Mr. Rogers, second by Mr. Starnader. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board.
I want to make a comment before we go to the next item. I want to thank your staff, yourself, for the, I don't know how many hours you guys have probably put in putting this whole document together. I want to thank the board for being engaged, actively engaged. And I think as a group of 8 plus your entire staff, we did the best we could. There is no perfect plan. We're going to learn from this as we go. But I can say for the first time in 6 months, we have children that will come to school. They'll get 2 meals a day for maybe the first time in 6 months. Some of them have had 2 meals a day. Maybe the first time some of them had 8 hours of being in a safe environment. Maybe the first time in 6 months special ed kids are getting the services they need. But I honestly believe that in this decision, we put our children first in WISD, and I just want to tell you guys I appreciate everything you done.
Your kind words, and I will tell you, this staff and others who aren't here have put in countless hours of meeting and reviewing and revising and arguing and changing, and They're very serious, and we depended on our teachers a lot. We got a lot of input from teachers, so it was a collective whole. And thank you, staff. I would like to add my thanks.
Okay, next item will be consideration and possible action to amend the 2020-2021 academic calendar.
This is like the gift that keeps on giving. We've never had a calendar that we quite bring back so often. But again, the attached calendar, there's two modifications. The first one I talked about is homecoming, but I'd like to make a third modification because Coach Reed sent out a revised football schedule at 4:24 today. And he said, before reading this email, please understand this is fluid and more changes could come, especially for district games. We are as confident as we can be about games 1, 2, and 3 because those are non-district games. With the restriction in Dallas and Tarrant County, we have lost our first two scheduled football opponents, but we replaced them with Coppers Cove away and Killeen home. We will revert to the original two teams for the 2021 season. The 11 6A district games are tentative as the DEC, District Executive Committee, is still looking at plans on how to adjust the schedule to allow for a possible open week and leave room to make up for games missed because of COVID shutdowns. Adjustments could include a more complex format of zones to be used as a backup plan if all 7 games cannot be played to determine district representatives in the postseason. And then he sent a chart, but so I'm going to leave homecoming and the homecoming parade for November 6th. The only thing that will change that is if it turns into an away game. I've never heard of an away homecoming game, or if it's an open date. I still want to leave it as homecoming, but if we can't have district play or for whatever, then we'll just, as soon as we know, we'll come to you. But I'd still like to change it. Go ahead and put the date on there as November 6th. And then I'm recommending that the first day of school for students be August 17th, and that August 13th and 14th are now professional development days. As I said, the principals weighed in and the teachers weighed in, and they said they just felt like they had to have 2 more days at least, and that's what I'm recommending. And even though the state fair has been canceled, the general opinion was they would like for it to remain a holiday. So I'm recommending that this calendar, which reflects those things, be approved as presented.
Dr. Kane, something that was pointed out to me is even though the state fair is canceled, they still have the ag exhibits that we participate in. I don't know if that's fact or fiction.
Well, we have the man here. Mr. Binnicker, somehow you've escaped both meetings and without
you
going
have
up
to
there.
talk. You're here, see.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for calling this guy out, okay?
You're just a myth. You're kind of a myth.
It's about time he went to work with everybody else. So.
The shows will still go on. Teachers are working with the executives of those programs to still figure out what those dates will be, but the plan now is that the shows will still happen. Smaller scale than what they've been in the past, but the exhibits, the livestock exhibits will still occur. So they're going to keep in contact with the parents who have already purchased animals. Some of these animals we've had for several months and the kids have been working on them, so they definitely want to go to those shows. So the plan is to still have them. I know with State Fair, if that event does not happen, there's 2 other events that are around the same weekends that we can also kind of pivot and move to those if we need to. So.
And so that leaving it as a school holiday helps that.
Thank you.
I have a question about the first week that the teachers are back. I can't read the writing, I'm sorry.
10, 11, 12, 13,
13th and 14th are both professional development days.
Okay.
Are those going to include like their school meetings? I mean, our campus meetings and everything?
Right now, because the board hadn't approved it, I'm going to leave that as that week. We have a principals meeting next week, and then Dr. Holt has her staff. So the principals want them a certain amount of time to talk about campus procedures. I think probably this year more than any other year, they need to be talking about that. Of course, they'd love to have them all week. Dr. Holt would love to have them all week. And then they need time in their classroom alone, that they don't have any other meetings to go to. And rather than us pointing out it's going to be this day and that day, because like the campus meeting, the principal may be happy to say, look, I just really need 1 full day. But instead of 1 full day, I want Monday morning and Friday afternoon, you know? But another campus may want Tuesday and Thursday. So as long as some of it will be restricted by Dr. Holt saying, we're going to have this learning here, but I'd like to leave it otherwise as flexible as possible, knowing that there will be two full days for camp, or 2 work days. That other 5 days, there's going to be 3 professional development, 1 work day, 1 campus day. But think of it in halves. 1 work day, 1 campus day, or 2 half days for a work day, 2 half days for campus days, and then that would be 3 and 3, 6 half days, but they may be full days for campuses. Did I say that right? For I'm sorry, professional
So
development.
the professional development are going to take 2 of the days. I mean,
Right.
because to me, the teachers aren't gaining very much with this. I mean,
They're not getting much with professional development?
they're gaining the professional development time, but they're not gaining much as far as, they left with not knowing they were not coming back. I mean, they have a lot of time between now and, we know that teachers will be in their rooms working and getting everything ready, and that's what you're counting on, but that's not always fair to the teachers, that they're expected to give up their time. So I'm just asking, how much of this 10th through the 5th, at 14th, are they going to be allowed?
Have we had more than 1 teacher workday in years past?
Typically, we would have a full week, and there would be, it just depends on, in years past, how many days they've had for work time in their classroom and how many they've had for professional development. One thing to keep in mind, it's always been kind of spotty. I know when I was a campus principal, it might be my campus day, but my meeting might only take 2 hours in the morning, and then the last 2 hours of that morning, 10 to 12, they'd be in their classroom. So it's kind of hit and miss on those days, and I think most principals are like that on that campus day. They don't occupy their time from 8 to 12 necessarily. So what we need to do is work with Dr. Holt and our principals this week and figure out, if the board approves tonight for a different start date, what would the week of the 10th look like? How much time do our campus principals need to train on COVID procedures? How much time do our teachers realistically need in their classroom? We know they need time. And so I would anticipate some of that time, if the board votes to approve this, we would gain back as some work time as well. It wouldn't be 2 solid days that we're recapturing as PD only. And so we'd work with Dr. Holt about what is essential that our teachers need before we can start up. I know her big concern is the online learning piece. And are our teachers ready to start online learning? So, and maybe pulling certain groups for online learning training while other groups have work time in their classrooms, and flip-flopping some of that. What does this look like on campus? Because you're dealing with students and these COVID restrictions in classrooms. So while they're having that training, our online teachers may be working to prepare lesson plans and things like that. So really, we need to get our whole team together if this is passed and see what does the week of the 10th look like. Very cognizant of what our teachers really need, which is time in their classrooms. I think about our Simpson teachers and how difficult it is. They can't even get in those rooms yet, and what does that look like? And so we do need to get the team together and talk about that.
Yes, thank you. I just want to encourage that discussion, because our teachers need as much time in the classroom as they can get with all the new everything. Everything that's new.
Everything is new.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to amend the 2020-2021 academic calendar.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon. Second by Mrs. Timmerman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. This time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Ms. Kriegel, second by Mr. Schoolfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.